Hi, everybody, and welcome to Mind and More, where we talk about anything that comes to mind and more. Today, I'm feeling a little messy, so let's talk about a love triangle. A triangle from one of my favorite shows growing up and still one of my favorites today. A show we haven't talked about on this channel before, but it's finally time. The show I'm talking about is Half and Half. It's an early 2000s sitcom, and the triangle I'll be talking about today, the love triangle, is the one between Mona, Lorenzo, and Chase. So the show ended on a cliffhanger. Mona was dating both Lorenzo and Chase, but we never got to see who she ended up with. Don't worry, they both knew that she was dating both of them, but the show ends on a note where she's making a call to one of them, we don't know which one, and she's telling the guy that he's the one that she's choosing. So since we don't know who she chose, I thought it'd be fun to step into Mona's shoes and see who would I have chosen if I were her. Both guys are ridiculously good looking and likable, so either choice makes sense. But still, I went ahead and did a pros and cons list for both of them, and that's what I want to go through today. But before we do that, let's first talk about how she met both guys, how she first broke up with them, and how she got back together with them again. Let's go. Mona first met Lorenzo when he moved into an apartment that was a floor above hers. So initially, Big Didi, who is Mona's stepmom, had tried to pair Mona's half-sister Didi with Lorenzo, but that didn't really work out because Lorenzo actually liked Mona instead of Didi, which was refreshing because most of the time, a lot of the guys would like Didi instead of Mona. So a little while after Lorenzo had moved into the same apartment building as Mona, he expressed his interest in Mona, and that's how they started dating. In terms of other things you should know about Lorenzo, he was a pastry chef, he was very artistic, and seemed like a nice, sensitive guy. Him and Mona dated for quite a bit, and it seemed like everything was going well. He would do sweet little things for her, like baking for her, making her dinner, really showered her with affection and attention. But after a while, the relationship broke down because Mona was really insecure and couldn't take a compliment. Every time Lorenzo tried to do something nice, say something nice, compliment her, show her that she's beautiful, just say something sweet, Mona had to, come back with something negative about herself. If he said she's beautiful, she'll be like, oh, it's just the makeup, that kind of stuff. And eventually that got to Lorenzo, and he said, you know what? How am I supposed to love you if you can't even love yourself? And that's how the relationship ended.
Hey, beautiful.
Oh, I thought Didi was behind me.
No, I was talking to you.
It was sad, but that wasn't the finale. They did get back together in a way after that. But before I get into that, let's now talk about Chase. Mona met Chase while she was on some kind of singles retreat. Initially, Mona didn't even know that it was a singles retreat, and her sister Didi had just roped her into it, and she tried to set her up with a guy there. But Mona wasn't really interested in the guy that Didi was trying to set her up with. She instead started to fall for Chase. Initially, Chase just seemed like this random guy who's always hanging out at the bar, but it turns out he was always at the bar because he was actually the owner of the restaurant, or I think it was a restaurant that they were having this retreat at. The chemistry was immediate, and they just hit the ground running. They were so caught up in one another that at some point it was affecting Mona's work. They were sleeping in, she was showing up late for work, and her boss had to have a little chat with her about balance. That's how crazy the chemistry was. Chase was also a good guy, seemed chill, successful, all that good stuff. But unfortunately, Mona and Chase ended up breaking up because around about the time they started dating, Lorenzo started expressing interest in Mona again. He wanted her back, and it was just causing a lot of drama, and Chase felt like there was still something between Lorenzo and Mona. She was like, no, there's nothing, but things didn't work out and they ended up breaking up. But after these breakups, both guys ended up coming back to Mona and saying, "We still want you." And at this time, Mona was now in therapy, and her therapist said, "You know what, girl, this is not the 1950s. You can actually date both of them and then decide who do you want to have a serious or committed relationship with." So that's what she did. She dated both guys for a little bit. Lucky girl. Until both guys were like, "You know what? It's either me or him. Like, just make a choice. We're done with dating you. With both of us dating you." But of course, they would just go behind the other's back and try and impress Mona anyway and tell her, like Chase would go and say to Mona, "Let Lorenzo down easy," and Lorenzo would do the same. But point is, by the time we get to the end of the show, we don't really get to see who she ended up choosing. So I'm gonna make that choice for her today. So now let's go to the pros and cons of both Lorenzo and Chase. Starting with Lorenzo. Lorenzo lives close by. There's like this natural sense of home, and it's easier to make time to see each other, which is great. He's also really artistic, and I'm biased because I love an artistic man. Mona herself was artsy, and you could see it in the way she dresses, so I feel like they made a good match because they're both artsy people. He's also a kind guy. He's always doing little gestures like baking for her and even her mom, if I'm not mistaken. And who doesn't want a guy who can cook? He's also expressive. You never have to guess what he's thinking. He writes her poems. He's very honest about how he feels about her. He clearly adores her and makes it known and clear. Generally, you can say he's just very emotionally safe. Now, the cons. With him living upstairs so close to Mona, it could also be suffocating, I'm sure. He's also a little less financially stable than either Mona or Chase. He's a chef, but at some point he's between jobs and looking for work. That's how he actually ends up working for Chase, who is Mona's boyfriend at the time. So there's some financial imbalance there. But then again, if he just got a job, there'll be nothing to talk about here. I mean, it's not like not having a job is a moral fault or anything like that. I'm just saying that he was just not financially as stable as Mona at the time. And money is important. It can bring about some problems in relationships if there's challenges with money. Just being a little realistic there. And also, it seems as though he may not match Mona's drive or ambition career-wise, so that could also potentially be a problem in future. But the one thing that I didn't really like is that he started going after her again when she was in a new relationship with Chase. It was kind of giving, does he really want her back so much because he loves her, or is it just because he just wants what he can't have and that's it? But anyway, that's it for the cons. Let's move on to Chase. Now, Chase is very charming. This man is charming. He charms Mona and he charms her mother too. He knows what to say and he's really likable. He's also a successful entrepreneur who's financially secure. If you're after security, he's a good bet. Another pro is that the chemistry between him and Mona was very strong from the onset. And overall, he seems responsible and like one of those people you want to believe has it all together. I know none of us do, but he just seems like he does. But what's the bad side? The cons. So I didn't like the Valentine's Day stunt he pulled. Let me explain. So Valentine's Day was coming up. It was their first Valentine's. And, Mona was trying to get information like if he's going to do something for her, what are they going to do? Just naturally, you're excited, right? And you're curious. You want to know, what are we doing for that special day? And he just kept on acting nonchalant. He's like, oh, I don't know. We'll just grab a pizza. We'll order in a pizza, whatever, like as if he didn't know that a special day was coming up. So taking her mom's advice, Mona decided to take things into her own hands and plan for Valentine's. So she bought I think it was like some kind of a limo ride and like little special things that they were going to do. I don't know. I don't remember the exact details, but point is she decided, you know what, if he's not going to do anything, I'm going to do something for us, which was nice. It was sweet. I mean, why not? But then turns out he actually was planning something and didn't want to let her know just yet because he wanted to make it a surprise. And then he got really mad that Mona had planned something, and he's like, oh, it seems like you don't have any faith in me. That says a lot about you. What, sir? You're the one who was making it seem like you had nothing planned. So if she decides to plan something, I don't see anything wrong with that. She wants to have a good first Valentine's with you. So what? She's like, oh, you don't have any faith in your man. Sir, I did not like that. You gave her the impression you were planning nothing. So she just took matters into her own hands so you could have a good time. The way he made Mona feel like she'd done something wrong when in fact she hadn't, I didn't like that. That felt kind of like controlling. I didn't really like it. Another instance that made me question Chase's character is when he hired Lorenzo at his restaurant after Mona had asked him to. At the time, he didn't know that Lorenzo was Mona's ex, and then while Lorenzo was already working for him, he then discovered that Lorenzo was Mona's ex. And so he started being kind of mean to Lorenzo, mistreating him a bit and over criticizing his work, and I felt like that showed that he had a bit of a mean streak. I understand jealousy and the discomfort of working with your partner's ex, especially when you hired them not knowing that they were your partner's ex, but a good person wouldn't do that. There was no need for him to start over criticizing Lorenzo. If he didn't want to work with him because he was Mona's ex, he could have just let him go instead of mistreating him. But nevertheless, no one's perfect. Although these guys come pretty close. Both guys are handsome and just overall great people, so this is tough. But anyway, I think with Lorenzo versus Chase, it's a head versus heart issue. One guy, Lorenzo, appeals to the emotions, while the other guy, Chase, seems to just make sense. But there can only be one winner. Who is that winner? In my books, the winner is Lorenzo. Mona seemed truly comfortable with Lorenzo. It seems like there's this emotional honesty there, and I love that. I love things when it feels like a really genuine, grounded connection. I also think that the reason why they broke up, the fact that Mona couldn't take a compliment and had so many insecurities, is something that could be easy to get over, especially now that Mona was in therapy. I'm sure she learned how to be less insecure and to be more self-aware and to know when to just take a compliment, I also think that it's telling that Mona continued to think about Lorenzo while she was with Chase. I think it shows that she still had some feelings for him. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that Lorenzo had genuine intentions when he came back for Mona, that he really just missed her and wanted her back, and that it had nothing to do with him wanting what he can't have. Although Lorenzo still feels like he's figuring things out and still has to sort out his career and all that stuff, it's okay because that's life. He seemed like a very talented pastry chef, and I'm sure in time he got a job and was just able to do what he needed to do to have stable finances, and that's fine. I would honestly pick a guy who seems genuine and loving and who's still figuring things out than someone who's successful and seems to have it all together, and yet they have this, kind of like a darker side like I think there was with Chase. I'm not saying he's a bad guy, not at all. He seemed like a decent person, but I do think there was more than meets the eye with him. Because that Valentine's Day thing did not do it for me, and how he was treating Lorenzo also did not do it for me. He could have had maybe a bit of a dark side, and all that charm was disguising that. But anyway, that's it. That's my winner. My winner is Lorenzo. That's the guy that I would pick. Who would you pick? Given all of the things that I talked about, how they met, how they broke up, the kind of guys these guys were, who would be your choice? What's your take?